Miss Allen here, and I'm substituting for Miss Hayworth on reading A Secret Zoo. And I believe we're on chapter 3, A Tale of Wonder. The bell rang, and Noah raced for the door, not bothering to slow down when Miss Bless called out, "Kids, walk!" Noah didn't have time for walking. He only had 3 hours before his parents would be home, so he needed to move fast. Since Megan's disappearance, Noah's parents had been working late, leading a search campaign out of a friend's office in downtown Clarksville. Considering all that his parents had been through with Megan, they'd originally had concerns about Noah's walking home from school and being by himself at the house. They'd finally decided to allow it, as long as Noah promised to walk home with his friends. And rather than being home by himself, Noah almost always stayed at Richie's until his parents picked him up after leaving the search headquarters for the day. Today, however, Noah needed to break the rules. In the hallway, he tossed his books into his locker, scanned the crowd to make sure Ella and Richie couldn't see him, and then squirmed his way to the main exit. Outside, he ran across the schoolyard, kicking up gravel and dust. He hadn't slept since the bird's strange visit the previous night. He still couldn't make sense of what had happened. Did it mean something? Or had a bird simply flown through his window and dropped a piece of trash in his room? Whatever it might be, there would be no harm in paying Mr. Talltail a visit. He walked down the drive, turned onto Jenkins Street, and walked alongside the concrete wall of the zoo. After rounding the corner onto Walker's Boulevard, he reached the zoo and bolted for the entrance, where he flashed his membership card to a startled attendant and crashed to the turf. Because the day was so cold, the zoo was nearly empty. Noah stormed across the pavement, weaving in and out of the exhibits. He'd been to the zoo so many times that he knew the shortest path to the Langer house without even thinking about it. When he reached the small ivy-draped building, he pushed through the entrance, turned a corner, and nearly crashed into a small group of people. The exhibit had no traditional bars or concrete walls. An enormous, dome-shaped net kept the Langers inside, where they relaxed on trees, looking bored. Their tails were so long that Noah wondered how the animals managed to keep them from becoming knotted in the branches. Mr. Talltail had the longest tail of all. As the monkeys rested on a high branch, his tail dangled below his rear end like a furry snake. Now that Noah was inside the exhibit, he felt a bit foolish. What did he expect to see? The visitors gradually wandered off, and the building fell silent. The Langers turned their eyes towards Noah occasionally, but they showed little interest in him. "Psst," Noah said. "Mr. Talltail." The monkey ignored him. He was more interested in a large leaf that was trapped in the ceiling of the net. "Mr. Talltail, can you hear me?" The monkey picked a closer leaf, popped it in his mouth, and chewed casually. Okay, Noah muttered, scratching his head. Why am I talking to a monkey? The entrance door swung open, and a security guard stepped inside. He had a thatch of fire engine red hair and plump lips, and his face and arms were covered in freckles. Noah said, feeling stupid and embarrassed. After all, this man had nearly caught him talking to a monkey. The guard didn't answer, and an awkward silence filled the air. He strolled past Noah, observing him skeptically. Noah stared at the Langers, pretending that he was enjoying himself. The sound of the guard's footsteps softened as he rounded the exhibit. Finally, Noah heard the exit door open and close. He was alone again with the Langers. Talk about creepy, Noah mumbled. He glanced at Mr. Talltail once more and said, "Nothing to show me, huh?" Mr. Talltail stared into space and idly chewed his leaf. working his jaw from side to side. Feeling like an idiot, Noah decided to leave and turn toward the exit. At that moment, something fell on his shoulder, and in a reflex reaction, Noah swatted his back. He swung around and yelped. A long, black, furry thing slithered across his forearm. It jumped off and floated in the air. Then Noah realized what it was. Mr. Talltail's tail. Seeing Noah turn to leave, the langur had leaped to the front of the net, deliberately poked out his tail, and brushed it over Noah's shoulder. What's more, a slip of paper was wrapped in the tip. Noah knew it was crazy, but Mr. Talltail was handing him the paper. The monkey waved his tail as if to say, "Are you going to take this or what?" Noah crept forward. He reached out his trembling arm and snatched the paper. "What is this?" he said. Mr. Talltail leaped back up to the trees and relaxed in his previous spot in the branches. He picked another leaf and chewed. His dark eyes gazed blankly into the distance, as if nothing had happened. For a second, Noah thought he'd imagined the whole incident, but the paper was in his hand, crumpled, ripped, and spotted. A few langur hairs even clung to it. Noah opened it carefully. The moment he saw the message inside, he thought he found it. It creaked open again, and he thrust the paper into his pocket. For the second time, the red-headed security guard walked in. He eyed Noah suspiciously, and as he approached, his heels angrily smacked the floor. What Noah had read on the paper was making his stomach roll and his head ache. "You okay, kid? You ain't looking too hot," the guard said. "Yeah, fine." Noah was anything but fine. He could barely breathe. "I gotta go," he managed to say. He hurried for the door, slammed through it, and burst into the cold air. "Have a nice day," the guard called out. The door crashed as it closed. Gasping, Noah leaned against the wall. He pulled out the paper and looked at it again. It was red, with purple lines and blue stars in the corners. He'd seen it before. Deep breaths, he told himself. "It's okay. It's okay. It's okay." But even as he repeated the words, he didn't believe them. Not for a second. Okay, guys, that's the end of chapter 3. Stay tuned for chapter 4. Mysterious clue to a mysterious zoo.